Fred Samuel Goetz, also known as Shotgun George Ziegler, was a Chicago outfit mobster and a suspected participant in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. In 1922, Goetz worked as a lifeguard at Clarendon Municipal Bathing Beach in the neighborhood of Beach Park, Illinois, until he was charged with sexually assaulting 7-year-old Jean Lonbert by an alley near her house where she lived in Edgewater, Chicago. Goetz denied the charges and jumped bail on June 10, 1925. 4 months later, Roger Bessner implicated Goetz in a failed robbery of Dr. Henry Gross, in which the family chauffeur was killed. On October 20, 1925, the Illinois state attorney had a lawsuit brought against Fred's parents, who scheduled some of their empty real estate property to be used as collateral for their son's bond. During the next several years, Goetz would become associates with underworld figures such as Joseph Weil and Morris Kleinman, as well as participating in several armed robberies, including the robbery of $352,000 from the Farmers and Merchants Bank in Wisconsin, with Gus Winkler and 4 others, in 1929. After the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Goetz left Chicago and began bootlegging operations in Kansas City, Missouri. Goetz eventually became associated with the Barker Karpus gang. He participated in several bank robberies with Alvin Karpus, Fred Barker, and Doc Barker. One of the most violent of the armed robberies in which Goetz participated with the Barkers was carried out at the post office in Minnesota on August 30, 1933. The robbery resulted in the theft of a $33,000 Swift & Company payroll, the murder of police officer Leo Pavlak, and the permanent maiming of police officer John Yeaman. The Barker Karpus gang then went on a shooting spree before fleeing the scene of the robbery. According to a report by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the bandits put on a Jesse James exhibition by shooting up and down Concord Street, shooting about a dozen shots into the Postal Building and across the street. These bandits used a Thompson submachine gun and a sawed-off shotgun with which they did their shooting, and it is a miracle that no one else was shot and wounded. They appeared to be cool and reckless, not giving a damn who they shot. Goetz is alleged to have returned to Chicago and to have been one of the gunmen in the October 9, 1933 murder of his former friend and associate Gus Winkler. Goetz then conspired with the Barker gang in the 1934 kidnapping of Minnesota's banking millionaire Edward G. Bremer. Goetz collected the ransom and released Bremer. FBI Chief Edgar Hoover later publicly accused Ma Barker of masterminding the Bremer kidnapping. According to Twin Cities historian Paul Maccabee, FBI files on the case reveal that it was Goetz, rather than Ma Barker, who directed both the Ham and Bremer kidnappings on behalf of crime bosses Harry Sawyer and Jack Pfeiffer, as well as mobbed-up former police chief Big Tom Brown. However, Goetz loved to brag over drinks to fellow wise guys in Chicago pubs about his involvement in the Bremer kidnapping, and even hinted about the names of his co-conspirators and the hiding place of the ransom money. On March 20, 1934, Goetz walked outside the Minerva Cafe in the mob-controlled Chicago suburb of Cicero, and was shot in the face by a shotgun at close range. He was taken to the Francis Willard National Temperance Hospital, but died from his wounds. His body had to be identified by fingerprints. Goetz's expensive coupe was found in Greater Grand Crossing, Chicago, and it was believed to have been abandoned there by his wife, who along with Fred was a wanted fugitive by the FBI. The culprit, or culprits, in Goetz's murder remain unknown. The newspapers suggested that the Barker gang had murdered Goetz rather than pay him his cut of the ransom money. In his memoirs, former Barker gang leader Alvin Karpus, while insisting that the Chicago outfit was responsible for Goetz's murder, also commented that Goetz had been getting kind of gabby and might have led the FBI to his fellow kidnappers. According to FBI documents, soon after Goetz's murder, Irene Goetz spoke about her husband. Fred Barker overheard her and said coldly, "To hell with George." Meanwhile, Louis Campagna, the Chicago outfit made man and capo regime responsible for running operations in Cicero, later told his friends that Fred Goetz got whacked because Harry Sawyer put him on the spot. Fred Goetz is buried at Irving Park Cemetery in Norridge, Illinois.